Yeah, let's do it.
Sanders patiently running. Sanders good cut. And another block. Sanders still going inside the 40.
NFC East champs, divisional champs, NFC champs, and world champs.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Kelly Green Hour, the Super Bowl edition. We are a mere 79-ish hours away from the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs kicking off Super Bowl 57 in Glendale, Arizona. I'm your host, LJ Harrell, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Connor Donald. Connor, we're almost there. This week has been taking forever, but we're slowly but surely getting to the point where we get to watch some Super Bowl 57.
Yeah, man, it's been a really long, really slow week. And last week was too. And the lead up to the Pro Bowl, the Pro Bowl was so disappointing, so stupid. And then I get it when the players are involved and it's super exciting and the media day's fun for them. But it's just not the same watching media personalities ask really stupid and pointless questions. I get it. It's fun for them and it's part of the moment, but it just makes the weeks drag on because they're all talking about the game. They're all talking about looking at after the game and the post, the off season and all this stuff. And I'm like, I just want this game to happen, man. I think it's going to be a really good game. So I'm pumped to start talking about it.
Yes, definitely cannot wait. For Sunday, we finally get through get through everything. We finally get through it all, and we'll be able to talk or watch the game. I can't wait for that. Before we get started, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJ Harrell54. Follow the Painted Lines on Twitter and YouTube at the Painted Lines, and follow Edge of Philly Sports on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at Edge of Philly Sports or EOP Sports. And if you're joining us live, let us know your thoughts on the game. Leave a comment. We'll definitely we'll definitely bring it up and chat about it. But so, Connor, first thoughts. Let's go to opening. I just want to talk the opening night of media. Seeing Andy Reid with Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham and Jason Kelsey, and just seeing Andy Reid in general. I mean, he hasn't been the Eagles coach in 10 years, but we know he was here for 14 years. What were your thoughts on all of that during the opening night, media night?
It was just cool to see. Like I said, I love seeing all the media attention and see some of the questions, like I said, are really stupid, but you like seeing the interaction of the players. It feels like Jalen Hurts' personality is really shining through a bit. Like I saw somebody post, I've never seen Jalen Hurts smile so much. It feels like he's been able to kick back and let loose a little bit. And that's so true. Maybe it's because of the comments made by Jeffrey Lurie that he has nothing left to play for. Maybe it's that he made it. This is a big game. This is what he's been working up to, proving all his doubters wrong. So it's really good to see him the way that he has been. The interaction between Andy Reid and the players is awesome. It's always awesome. If things could have been different, we'd probably still have Andy Reid right now. I would have preferred it that way, but we know that change is necessary in football. Change is inevitable, and sometimes they find that success, they reincarnate that success that they had or were trying to get to with their old team just because they need a change of scenery. And we've kind of seen that with some coaches, how things died down with Doug Peterson. He went to Jacksonville. He's reviving Jacksonville. It's kind of looking like the early days of his time in Philadelphia when he was turning us around and turned us into a Super Bowl contender. So it's just really cool to see all the interaction. And that's the fun part about the media night, not listening to the media ask the questions. I find that extremely irritating because a lot of them are really stupid, like I've said a few times. But the interaction between everyone is just so fun. And the biggest thing that stood out to me was the camaraderie of this team. Everybody can't say enough good things. And if there was enough money to go around, this whole team would be back again next year. I guarantee it would. And it's unfortunate that it's not going to happen that way, but you can definitely tell there's so much more camaraderie. While people are hating on Philadelphia, the team saying, I would come back. I love it here. Who wouldn't want to be here? So that's what stands out to me. Jalen Hurts' reaction and the camaraderie of the team and how they're all standing together. And despite what people are saying about Philadelphia, they're saying, screw what other people are saying. Philadelphia is awesome. Everybody should want to come here.
Going back to what Jeffrey Lurie said about Jalen, do you agree that he doesn't have anything to play for? I do feel like if and I heard this on the radio this week, and it's kind of true. And I'm a big I love Jalen in college, but in the biggest games in college, he wasn't that good. In the playoff game last year, he wasn't that good. Even in this year's playoff games, they haven't needed him to be good, because the Giants aren't good, so they were able to run right through him. The Niners didn't have a quarterback, so he didn't have to throw the football, and they were able to run right through him. Do you? I do think that he kind of does have something to prove in this Super Bowl. Like, they could go out there, and it could be a high scoring game, and the Chiefs win, and be like, all right, that wasn't Jalen's fault. That was just Patrick Mahomes being Patrick Mahomes. But he could also go out there, and it could be 28-0 at halftime, and he's just having a crap game. I mean, I do kind of sort of think that he does have still has a little bit to prove, and I think he would agree with that.
Absolutely. I think he still has something to play for. I mean, you can get, all the discussion right now, is it 45 million? Is it going to go past $50 million? You win the Super Bowl, you are going north of 50 million without a doubt. But if you don't win the Super Bowl, maybe you have a bit to talk about, especially like you said, if things get really ugly and he kind of throws up the Tampa Bay game of last year. But I mean, we hope, I guess we don't know, but we hope that he's not going to return to that form, and that he's learned a lot and he's come a long way this season. But yeah, there's always something to play for. Even once you get the contract, you should still be playing for the team, for the wins, for the Super Bowls. You should to live up to the expectations of the contract you're given. There's always something to play for. And that's why, Lurie's going to say it just for the sake of, this is our guy. We're not even going to discuss quarterback in the offseason. There's no need to. Don't overreact to anything done at the quarterback position. This is Jalen's team. He's just really throwing everything behind Jalen Hurts, maybe to boost his confidence and keep his confidence up going through this week, going through that first Super Bowl week, and knowing that, because it's your first one. Lurie's been here before. He knows what to say, and to keep his quarterback focused on the game. It's difficult to say. I really didn't feel the comment was necessary, but I get where he was coming from in regards to, if there's anybody questioning an extension, don't worry, it's happening. I think might more or less be where he was going with it. Not necessarily that Jalen had nothing to play for, but just kind of to get ahead of the Philly media and say there's a contract extension coming. Do not even discuss other quarterbacks or the prospect of doing anything different and deviating away from him. That's kind of what I felt of it, but there's definitely something to play for. I think there's always something to play for. And based on the mentality and the way that Jalen talks, I agree, LJ. I think he would agree 100%.
Yeah, so and I also think that the Eagles aren't taking the Carson Wentz route with Jalen. Like, they rolled out the red carpet, they gave him the big money after year 3, 4, whatever it left. So I think they're going to play this smart when it comes to Jalen. All right, let's jump into the game. We know that there's a bunch of storylines. We know it's the Andy Reid Bowl, the Kelsey Bowl. Nick Sirianni used to coach, was in Kansas City and was coaching with Reid for 10 minutes before, he got let go. What do you think the biggest storyline of this game is coming into it? Whether it's, again, Andy Reid, the Kelseys, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts. What do you think the biggest storyline is?
That's difficult. Like you said, there is so many fun storylines. Like, this Kelsey's storyline is great to watch. Like the interviews with the father and the mother on their podcast and so on and so forth, they're playing it up massively. Like they're all over the media. She's getting interviewed. The mom's getting interviewed everywhere too. She was on CNN. She's doing it all. Like they're soaking that all in. Although I think the biggest storyline, in my opinion, doesn't come from one of those, like the first two black quarterbacks going against each other, the Andy Reid Bowl, the Kelsey Bowl. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think the biggest storyline is what Philadelphia has been able to accomplish. Like even win or lose, this defied the expectations that were kind of there. People were starting to become adjusted to it as the offseason rolled on, and like people were starting to predict that we were going to end up finishing, like you saw people predicting. We thought it was crazy to think about predicting only a couple losses or 3-4 losses, and here we are completely wrong about it. They've defied expectations, and Howie has proven, I feel like there's been a lot proven by Howie, a lot proven by Nick Sirianni, a lot proven by Jalen Hurts. There's just been, and that's the biggest storyline to me, is that there still is disrespect, and you can tell, like you still see guys like Chris Sims who just will not back down on anybody could go into that offense and just win, or Jalen Hurts still isn't a top 10 quarterback, or so on and so forth. They just ignore all of that and they just keep going, and they keep finding success. They keep finding ways to win, whether ugly, whether good. They didn't have to win pretty last week or 2 weeks ago. And that's one of the big things. Like people talk about, well, if they were healthy, the thing is they played to, the game and the way that the game went, and that's how the game went. So I know that the media, and I know guys like Brandon Ayuk and Christian McCaffrey are sitting there saying the refs screwed us. The game was given to Philadelphia and so on and so forth. But we still had to win and play basically against ourselves to make sure that we were able to win, and we didn't take it to heart that, oh, they don't have a quarterback who can throw, because we've seen Philadelphia do that, where they play into a situation and they play down to a situation and they lose those types of games. So I think like that's the biggest storyline to me, is just how far the Eagles have come as a team from a coaching, a player standpoint, quarterback big time with Jalen Hurts standpoint. That's the biggest storyline, and the continued doubters and the continued hate is just more fuel, as we've seen over and over again for Philadelphia.
And these teams are so evenly matched. I mean, you think about it, they had the same record, the same amount of points scored, MVP caliber quarterback, number one seeds, and both have a Kelsey. Like it's crazy how closely mirrored they are, and it's expected to be like that. Andy Reid set the standard in Philadelphia, and Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie have continued that post Andy Reid. So it should be a great matchup. And if you think about it, looking at the teams, you could theoretically say that the three best players in this game are Kansas City Chiefs: Patrick Mahomes, Chris Jones, and Travis Kelce. But then after that, a bunch of Eagles: Jalen Hurts, Jason Kelce, Hassan Reddick, Darius Slay, James Bradbury. If it's crazy. Lane Johnson. Just you can go on and on and on. But like, usually you kind of have a feel of how a Super Bowl could potentially go, and I have no feel for this game right now. Like, as we're 78-ish, 79-ish hours out. So I'm just, the Chiefs could come out, and they've been there before, and obviously a handful of Eagles players have been there before. But like the quarterback, at the most important position in sports, the quarterback has been there. This is his third time in the Super Bowl. He knows the expectations. While Jalen has played in a national championship game, a couple of them, this is still a totally different monster than that. The Super Bowl is, as soon as the first kickoff, all the light bulbs going off. And as much as he says, we're just trying to, I'm trying to do everything, and the organization is saying we're trying to do everything the same as if it was a regular game. This isn't a regular game. This is the damn Super Bowl. So that's going to be interesting to me. Is how do you got all the ticket requests? Hopefully, all that's out the way. All the media obligations will be out the way. All the family obligations. You obviously want to see your family, but you don't want them to be a distraction as you're approaching the Super Bowl. So I think that's going to be a key. The first couple of minutes of the game, which team handles all the adversity, the longer time before a game, because you have all the festivities leading up to kickoff. Who handles all that better? And I think Kansas City will have the advantage because they've been there. Andy Reid's been there. And the Eagles only have, like I said, a handful, 5, 6, 7, 8 players that have been there. I think that could be a key early on in the game. But then as you kick off, go through the first quarter, second quarter, I think it just becomes a regular football game after that.
I agree. I think you got to get comfortable in the situation. Like the spotlight's huge. It's a big game. We talked about this with Brock Purdy a couple weeks ago. Nothing matches as you go forward in each round, nothing matches the mental play on you in those types of situations, because it's huge. You don't even realize until you step onto the field and then it hits you and you're like, holy wow, we're here. It's time. We got to win. Every drive counts. Every point counts. Everything starts to go and it starts to turn once you get on the field. And we've seen Jalen Hurts, man, he's as calm, cool, and collected as almost any quarterback in the NFL. But at the end of the day, inside that these types of moments hit different, and whether he wants to say it or not, or whether he wants to show it or not, we know it's hitting different, and we know it is going to hit different for everybody. Even the 5 Eagles who were back from the 2017 team that won the Super Bowl, even those guys, it's still going to hit different. Every Super Bowl is different. It's huge. And no matter what you say, it is definitely going to play into their minds at the beginning, and things may be a little sloppy at the beginning. But like you said, hopefully they settle into it and it just becomes just another football game. Get through that first drive, maybe that first quarter, and realize this is just another football game. Let's go out and win it. We've won 17, 16 of them this year. Let's go and win one more. What's one more?
Yeah. And then I think, before we jump into the X's and O's of it all, there's no hate, and I don't like using the word hate because there's not really hate between teams, but let's be real. There's really no hate between these two teams. Travis Kelce with the brothers being on these teams, they hang out in the offseason probably. I'm not saying that Patrick Mahomes is going to be best friends with somebody from the Eagles, but there's no ill will, I don't think, there's no former Chiefs on the Eagles that have an ill will for being cut. There's no, besides some of the coaching staff, I don't think player wise, there's no former Eagles on the Chiefs. So it's just you kind of want some animosity between the players, but and the teams. But there really isn't this here. Obviously, you can have that. They'll play up the Kelces will play up the sibling rivalry. The media is going to bring up, Andy Reid leaving or being fired from Philly and try to bring up some animosity. But as Joe says, there's definitely a mutual respect between these two organizations. They are built the same. Andy Reid, Spagnuolo, Greg Lewis, Bieniemy, even the trainer, Rick Burkholder, all those guys came from Philly. Matt Nagy, who's the QB coach, came from Philly. And then when you look at the Eagles, Nick Sirianni came from the Chiefs. And you see Jason Kelce has gone to the Super Bowl to watch Travis play. I'm pretty sure Travis went to the Super Bowl 52 to watch the Eagles play. It's just a brotherhood that you don't see when two teams, if this was when the Eagles and the Patriots played, you saw Tom Brady wanted nothing to do with Nick Foles. And when he beat him, definitely didn't want nothing to do with him. It's not going to be like that. If the Chiefs win, Jalen Hurts is going to go up and congratulate Patrick Mahomes. The Eagles win, Patrick Mahomes is going to go up and congratulate Jalen Hurts. There is just that respect between these two organizations that I think will make this game even more fun to watch, because we're not going to be sitting there. Is there going to be a fight like there was the NFC Championship game when Trent Williams is trying to throw people? There's not going to be that in this game.
No, there probably isn't. And, like you say, you want to see some animosity, because if there's a little bit there, that can make all the difference. I still think that these two are premier. Obviously, they made the Super Bowl. These two teams are premier NFL teams that no matter what, whether there was animosity or not, they're going to step on that football field and it's going to be a good game. It's going to be a competitive game. And there doesn't even have to be animosity or anything there between them, because they are the best of the best. They know they are. You got a top 3 offense versus a top 3 offense. The only weird spot is the Chiefs defense ranks in the middle of the pack of everything, and our defense ranks in the top 3 of the league in that category too. So like it's pretty much the best of the best going one-on-one. Maybe if you swapped a couple Kansas City Chiefs players and got defensive players and got a couple better guys in there, then we'd be talking about top 5 defenses as well. But at the end of the day, I don't think you need that animosity or anything.
Nope, not at all. All right, so let's jump into the X's and O's of it all. We'll start with the Chiefs defense, or excuse me, the Chiefs offense, and obviously it starts with Patrick Mahomes, probably going to win the MVP tonight. And their running game with the Jersey's own and a rookie from Rutgers, Isaiah Pacheco. Jerick McKinnon has been really big out the backfield for them, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be playing in this game. So while the Chiefs do not run the football a lot, and because it's Andy Reid, obviously, and Andy Reid is more prone to throwing the football. It wouldn't shock me if they try to surprise the Eagles here and there. Maybe, some screens, obviously, some draws, and try to get the running game, because Hassan Reddick has been a beast. And if Orlando Brown or Andrew Wiley aren't able to stop Hassan Reddick, it could be a long day for that Chiefs offense.
Yeah, absolutely. You hit it on the head there. The Chiefs, that they're not going to run a whole lot, but you saw Isaiah Pacheco. I think he had 7 receptions last week. They used him in a unique way. He's a good runner. If he can find a little bit of a hole and start going, he's a violent runner. His run style's weird. Whenever he runs, it's weird. I'm always sitting there. I'm like, man, I can't pinpoint it, but he's a weird runner, but he's a violent runner. He's an aggressive runner, and you don't want many holes to open up. And when he's coming at you, you want to make sure you can make those tackles as well. Obviously, so Juju's going to be a go. It looks like Kadarius Toney apparently is running all over the place, so that he's going to be a go. They're only going to be missing Mecole Hardman, which is a decent player to miss. If you don't have Kadarius Toney and you don't have Mecole Hardman, that takes away that fancy coming out of the backfield type of trickery that some teams use. Those were the 2 main guys that would get those hands off in the backfield on the trick plays and bust out for 10, 15, 20 yards on a run. Those were those 2 guys. So if there's anything wrong with Kadarius Toney, or he's not 100%, that could limit what they can do with the playbook from that perspective. But last week, MVS stepped up big time. Marcus Valdes-Scantling stepped up big time. Juju, if he's healthy, we know that he can inhale targets and do what he's got to do with it. And then, of course, we know Travis Kelce. He's coming off a couple weeks ago was 17 targets or whatever. He just takes all the targets, and we know that our linebackers won't be able to cover that. We know that at the end of the day, there's going to need to be a lot of help there. It's probably going to be a mix of Vontae Maddox is a bit undersized. You're probably going to have some help from Gardner Johnson over top to cover that. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with Travis Kelce, because it feels like you could put 2 or 3 guys on him and he's still going to make the catch. He's an X factor big time in this game, and he's going to be an X factor because I would argue we haven't played a tight end or an X-factor tight end like this. We've talked about tight ends being a factor in games because our coverage from a linebacker perspective isn't great, but this is a completely different tight end and a completely different beast, especially since we didn't really get to see George Kittle last week because they couldn't pass football. You definitely got it right there. Their offensive line is good, but not great. It shows flashes of being able to be something, but at times it can be hit or miss. And going up against our defensive line, that's going to be a completely different challenge because you got a team that is smashing records for sack records. Whether it be sack records for individual players, how many individual players have double-digit sacks, whether it be sacks altogether. I know that some people, like we said a couple weeks ago, are going to try and discount the sack record. The sacks, it's still sacks are sacks. And I think it was Hassan Reddick or somebody had mentioned, their splash stats. And for some people, if it was anybody else, it's going to matter. But because it's us, it doesn't matter kind of statement was made. And it's kind of true. Because you look at Trayvon Diggs last year and his interceptions, everyone went crazy and forgot that, he gave up over 1,000 yards. And then you look at the defensive player of the years or the ones who are up for defensive player of the year and you compare them to Hassan Reddick, they don't even have the splash stats. So or they have it, but maybe on par or less than Hassan Reddick. So it is really bizarre how all that works. But at the end of the day, we know that this defensive line is really good and they can get pressure. And whether it always ends in sacks or not, we have been seeing a guy like Hassan Reddick causing complete chaos back there.
And we saw in the last Super Bowl that the Chiefs played in against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's defensive line won the game for the Buccaneers, and the Chiefs had to go out and pretty much rebuild their offensive line. So that could be another way for the Eagles to go about, trying to rattle. You can't stop them. We can only hope to contain them. Patrick Mahomes. My other, and I'm speaking on the Eagles defense, I think having Avonte Maddox back is going to be key in terms of trying to contain Travis Kelce, because you maybe use a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, along with, if you wanted to double team him, maybe because Kaiser White or something like that. Now, while we like Gardner-Johnson back at safety, now he can play all over the place. He can cover the slot, he can cover the tight end. So I think if Avonte Maddox can be healthy the entire game, that'll be key. And I also think my biggest worry for the Eagles defense, and he has been good, but again, it was against teams that don't have good quarterbacks, Jonathan Gannon. Because we saw last year when he went up against a real legit quarterback, the last time they played the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes had 80% completion percentage and 5 touchdowns. So that's my worry. Will we get the passive Gannon? Will we get the sit back and shell Gannon and allow Mahomes to dink and dunk his way down the field to an 80% completion percentage? If we don't get the Gannon, that's going to allow the receivers or the corners, Slay and Bradbury, to play up, get a little physical, and I'm not asking him to blitz, but come up with creative ways to get after Mahomes. Mahomes will tear the defense apart. I don't care how good the defense has been playing, but if Gannon doesn't get creative, it could be a long day for this Eagles defense.
Yeah, I completely agree. On the Avonte Maddox front, I know he only played, 21 snaps last 2 weeks ago against San Francisco. I do think that was in large part to, it was his first game back, and the fact that they weren't going to be able to throw. They were able to be more flexible and, get him off the field a little bit more. Hopefully Maddox will be able to be out there for, 70, 80% of snaps so that you can use Chauncey Gardner-Johnson in more creative ways and in different ways, because you're going to need him up against the receivers may not be A-list receivers, but at the end of the day, it's Patrick Mahomes who turns them into the A-list receivers and the A-list weapons that they are, except for Travis Kelce, who Mahomes just takes him from A-list to like A++ list. But having those guys, having Mahomes throwing you the football, he can get the football to you. You just got to make the catch. We have seen drops be a major enemy to guys like Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Juju, Mecole Hardman, Kadarius Toney. There's been some bad drops throughout the playoffs for them in games for the Chiefs. So maybe we get some help in that regard as well. But having Maddox be out there the maximum amount of time and use Gardner-Johnson in more unique ways and all over the field would be huge. So hopefully we did see the first practices that Maddox was in a boot. The Eagles did say that it was all precautionary and whatever, and probably just to help, get weight off, get anything they can off of Maddox so that he's able to get himself closer and closer to 100%. For this game. So I believe that it was probably just precautionary, not something we have to worry about, because we really don't want to see a guy like Josiah Scott out there in the Super Bowl, because he was getting eaten alive by not very good teams, not very good quarterbacks. He will get left to die against this offense, and we don't want him to have to be out there. Even at 70 and 80%, Avonte Maddox is better than 100% Josiah Scott. So I'll take it any way that we can. And I agree with you on Jonathan Gannon completely. we've never seen him in this big of a game, in this big of a moment. It always has felt like, he could be passive because he knows, oh, next week. I don't necessarily need this one, or he's able to test being a bit more passive out. But now he's never been in this moment. He needs to know. We know he's not going to be aggressive in regards to the blitz. He's no Spagnuolo. Spagnuolo is going to bring the blitz. He's going to bring the pressure. He's going to make things tough for Jalen Hurts. That's not the way Jonathan Gannon makes things tough. He's more creative in the secondary. He tries to work on situations where he can get his guys more aggressive one-on-one. So it'll be interesting to see, like you said, what Gannon does, because this is a very different moment than when we've usually seen him as passive. But we always have to live and die on the fact that he always does it against really good quarterbacks, is when he gets passive and everyone's playing 10 yards off, protecting the sticks. And next thing you know, you're backed up to the end zone and you can't give up any more yards. So you have to actually start to be aggressive. Hopefully we don't see that, but this is a big moment, and we know that you can't be passive for too long, and you have to make your adjustments before halftime. You're going to have to adjust as things are happening.
Yeah, I mean, the big battle of Andy Reid versus Jonathan Gannon. I mean, I think Reid definitely has the advantage there. So we'll see. And, with the receivers that Kansas City has, and you mentioned it, like, they're not A-level receivers, but Mahomes is what makes them that good. Like we have to allow Bradbury and Slay to man up on them and try to take them out the game so that you can have more bodies. I mean, I'm not expecting Mahomes to be running, like, obviously 2 weeks out, and he was able to do it in the AFC Championship game. So he's going to have more time, and he's going to be a little bit healthier. I mean, it's a high ankle sprain, so it's not something that he can come back from, after a week. But I do expect him to be a little bit more mobile, which, if the ends are getting too far upfield, Mahomes will have no issue stepping up, finding Kelsey in the middle of the field, which is the Eagles', I think, weakness on defense is that middle of the field. So that's where Kelsey, I think, will be able to expose. So that'll definitely be interesting to see. Let's jump over to the Eagles' offense. And it obviously starts with Jalen Hurts, and he hasn't been good since the injury throwing the ball downfield. And I think that's going to be key, being able, because I think A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are going to be able to beat McDuffie and beat L'Jarius Sneed. They're going to be able to win their matchups, but can Jalen Hurts hit them down the field? That's going to be question number one, because he will get the protection. I know Chris Jones and Frank Clark, they're really good, but the Eagles' offensive line is the best in football, so I think they'll give him time. I don't know if it's the injury. I don't know if it's jitter. I don't know what it is, but the last couple of weeks, the last couple of games, while he hasn't needed to, he's going to need to be able to hit a play down the field in the Super Bowl. The question will be, will he be able to?
Absolutely. I agree. And I mean, that's definitely going to be a difference maker, because this secondary really isn't that good. You look at it, L'Jarius Sneed, the big name, the big guy, he's given up a 70% receiving rate at 713 yards. You look at the linebackers, Nick Bolton and Willie Gay, they're both giving up 90% reception rates. And then you look at like Trent McDuffie, you look at Reed, you look at Thornhill, they're all giving up well north of 60% receptions. So you should be able to take advantage of this. They're not that great in coverage. They are more aggressive, and we know that that's a Spagnuolo defense there. They are a lot more aggressive. They will man up. They will make your day tough. And I agree with you. I think that this is going to be something where I think A.J. Brown needs to be taken advantage of. Since the playoffs, we haven't really seen him used as much, even more since dating back almost to when Jalen Hurts got hurt. We haven't been seeing A.J. Brown used as much or as effectively as we had been seeing it prior to his injury. So we're definitely going to need to have a big game out of him, hitting the big play to Devontae Smith. We saw that was a massive game changer, a huge shift in momentum when he was able to hit that big play that wasn't actually a play, but we got away with it against San Francisco. Those types of big plays are going to be needed, and they're going to have to happen a couple times. You got to be able to open things up. You can't just be throwing within the first 10 yards and hoping that hoping that the run game gets going. No, everything goes hand in hand. You got to be able to work all parts of the field, and he has to be able to start getting that ball downfield. One of the big things about Patrick Mahomes, that man is hurting. You absolutely know that man is in a lot of pain. It's all or nothing. I get it. There's a difference between the shoulder and the knee or the ankle. I get it, but you gotta just get whatever you gotta get for your pain tolerance, and then it's all on you. And there's no bigger moment than this. You gotta unleash. You gotta be able to play through that injury. We saw it last week with Patrick Mahomes. Man, there was times he got up limping, and you could tell that man is fighting through something really painful, probably on point with what Jalen Hurts
He's
is probably
definitely
going through.
not coming off the field ever. They'll have to hide his helmet.
Exactly.
They'll
And I
grab somebody
respect
else's
the hell
helmet
out of
if
him.
need be.
I respect the hell out of him. The guy knows that these are big moments. These are moments that you're not, well, they may get them more frequently because it's the Kansas City Chiefs and they've been insane the past few years. But you know these moments aren't always going to happen. An injury, you know there's a lot of guys fighting through things. You know, after this game, come Monday, Tuesday, we're going to get Lane Johnson. Well, we know Lane Johnson's playing through something and Maddox is playing through something. We're going to get all those reports of this guy's playing through this and that and this and that. We know everyone's playing through something, but you got to be able to put it aside and be the Jalen Hurts that you were earlier in the year, because those big plays are what open it up so you can get some runs. So Miles Sanders can break some big runs. Kenneth Gainwell, who's been on fire in the playoffs, can get some big runs. You need to be able to open the field up and use everything outside the numbers, inside the numbers, from 0 to 10, negative like screen plays even. He's got to be able to hit everything. It's got to be one of his best games. And we haven't really seen a good game from Jalen Hurts since before that Chicago game. Really, the games have been touch and go. He, like you said, he hasn't had to be, but it's not like he's put any effort to make them look any better. They were ugly. A lot of those wins were ugly wins, and he made them remain ugly wins with the way that he was playing. So he's got to put that all aside. He's got to be the Jalen Hurts we saw prior to the injury, whether he's at 80% or 75% or 100%. We need him to be playing like he's at 100%.
Yep. And even if he, like you said, even if he's not, it's going to be important that he just goes out there and does what he does. And I expect the full gambit of plays. You're going to see a bunch of RPOs. I will be interested to see if Spags uses Nick Bolton maybe, or Willie Gay. Probably Nick Bolton if they were going to spy Hurts. But if Hurts is able to throw the football, it's going to be tough to spy him, because we saw early, like in the Dallas game in Philly, when he had Micah Parsons on skates. Like, he was able to run, he was able to throw, because he had that full gambit ability of plays. So that'll be interesting to see what the Eagles offense is going to come out. Are they going to come out running the football? Are they going to try to establish the pass to back the Chiefs defense up? But like you said, Spags is going to come after him, because this offensive line for the Eagles is really good. So you have to find a chink in the armor. And if that's bringing 6 so that there's only 5 to block, and you have to force Jalen Hurts to miss, make somebody miss, that's what you do until he beats you. And if he beats you early on, it can be a long day for the Kansas City Chiefs defense.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm looking at it now. Pressured completion percentage for Jalen Hurts, 34.5%. That's 26th among all quarterbacks. Clean pocket percentage, 74%. It's second among quarterbacks. You know that he is much better. Most quarterbacks are much better with a clean pocket, but in games where we've seen teams kind of bring the pressure to Jalen Hurts, the offense hasn't been able to look as effective as we like to see. And we know that Spags is a guy who's going to bring that pressure. He's not afraid to do it. Now, he's not going to do like cover 0, like we're not Greg Williams here, but he is very methodical with how he brings pressure, when he brings pressure. He's one of the smartest defensive coordinators in the league. And you look at that pressure completion percentage, and Jalen Hurts struggles once the pressure comes. He needs to be given time so he can make a decision. Do I run? Do I see an opening to run? Do I throw the ball deep, like waiting for the play to transpire? Do I find Dallas Goedert or Gainwell close? He needs the time to make a decision. I think he's a good processor, but he's not as quick as we would like him to be sometimes. And when the pressure comes, that's when you really see that weakness and that kink, like you kind of say, that he doesn't necessarily have the processing ability. Like Patrick Mahomes, he makes things happen just like snap a finger. If the pressure hits him right away, the ball's gone. he's taken the hit, but the ball's gone and he's already found someone to throw to. That's not something we necessarily see from Jalen Hurts, and we're going to probably need to see from Jalen Hurts. Be prepared, know where your safety valve is going to be and where you can get the ball out quick if pressure comes, because you know that I would probably say on a good nearly half of his dropbacks on Sunday night, he's going to be under some sort of pressure. So he's going to have to be able to make plays and know where the players are to make sure that he's not taking sacks. He's not making his offensive line take bad penalties. He needs to know he needs good, high football IQ and to make things happen out of what could be nothing at times.
And Joe makes a good point. It's okay if Hurts isn't 100%. The team will rally around him to bring him the win. They'll fight for him. That is true. Like, the one thing this team loves playing for Jalen Hurts and this coaching staff. But, like, as big of a fan as I was of Carson Wentz, he was standoffish, I guess, for lack of a better term, when it came to stuff with the team. So that you don't see with Jalen. They will play for Jalen Hurts. And they will do what needs to be done. I mean, they know that Jalen will do everything he can do in his power to help them come away with the victory.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And just a couple more from the offensive side of the ball. The matchup with Chris Jones will be really interesting to watch. When I was looking at PFF at his breakdown, he's played all over. He's been a tackle. He's been on the right end. He's been on the left end. In the last 4 or 5 games, he has been on the left end, which would put him up against Lane Johnson, right? Yeah, left end. So he'd be going up against Lane Johnson, right tackle. But you know that he can play all over that defensive line. And you know, Spagnuolo, like I said, he's smart. He's going to get creative. Jones will play at different areas, and he'll be responsible for eating up bodies so that the pressure can get after Jalen Hurts. And we know that. Chris Jones, 93 total pressures on the year, 17 sacks. It's nothing to scoff at. And that's regular and postseason. He's had an incredible season. He's like an ageless wonder. So we know that he's going to do some big things. He's one of the only guys you really, really have to worry about. Frank Clark, he's had 53 pressures, 9 sacks. After that, nobody has more than 5. George Karlaftis has 8, but no one really. Outside of that, there's not really a whole lot from a sack perspective. So you've got to be able to shut down a guy like Chris Jones, Frank Clark, George Karlaftis. You got to be able to make sure that those guys are not getting after the quarterback and that the offensive line is doing their job, because you know that you're going to have Kenneth Gainwell or Miles Sanders or a tight end. Just don't let your tight end be blocking Chris Jones or Frank Clark, because we saw last week. Look what happens when you try and get a tight end to block. That's what happened to Brock Purdy's hand. Not a dirty hit like some fans are saying in San Francisco. That's what you get when you have a bad plan for a very good edge like Hassan Reddick. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Chris Jones. But no matter what, hopefully he's on Lane Johnson's side a lot, because Lane Johnson has been the most consistent guy. Even though he's playing through something, he says he felt better since it ripped. So we can expect Lane Johnson's probably going out there as 100% Lane Johnson. And if Chris Jones is there often, we've seen what Lane Johnson can do to some elite players and elite edge rushers.
He shut Nick Bosa down, and I think having the 2 weeks off definitely helped a guy like Lane Johnson. But it is going to be a big test going up against Chris Jones. I think one of the things that Sirianni said, I think yesterday or the day before, you know, the Eagles have been practicing the situational stuff that whether it's 2-minute drill, red zone, 2-point conversion. You have to expect the unexpected when it comes to Andy Reid and his offense. What do I mean by that? Against the Raiders, they did the ring around the rosy play. Like, you're going to see something from the Chiefs that the Eagles will see something from the Chiefs that they haven't seen all season long.
Absolutely.
That's the Chiefs. That's their offense. So the Eagles are going to have to be ready for that. If they get down into the red zone or they get down a third and 1, 4th and 1, expect Kelsey to go under center to sneak it. You know, obviously, especially you don't want Mahomes doing that if he's got to try to push off of his foot, you know, his ankle, So the Eagles just have to be prepared for anything and everything. And I think if there's going to be a team in the game that's going to do something crazy, a flea flicker, a double reverse pass, something like that, it will be the Chiefs. So the Eagles have to be prepared, stay in there, you know, stay with their assignments and not get beat by something crazy. And if that's the way you lose a game, that would be a really heartbreaking way to lose.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of creative stuff. We know, like the Philly special. That was not something it was something they'd been practicing all that year and getting ready for the perfect situation to use it. We know that Andy Reid probably has an entire page in a playbook of plays that nobody has seen, and like the Ring Around the Rosie play, like those types of situations where he just says, "This is a good time to pull one out. Let's see if it works." You just never know when he's going to pull that out, like you said, to make that play. I think, like, moving into our impact players, I think for offensively, it's both tight ends because Dallas Goedert going up against, like I just said it, Nick Bolton, 73 receptions allowed on 80 targets for 658 yards allowed. Then you look at the other starting linebacker, Willie Gay. It's 47 receptions allowed on 52 targets for 351 yards. These linebackers cannot cover to save their lives. I think this is going to be a really big game for Dallas Goedert. We could probably point to a big game for A.J. Brown. If A.J. Brown can work the middle of the field properly and get the right matchups, you just never know. If you end up one-on-one with one of those linebackers, Jalen Hurts better see that. Jalen Hurts better throw that, because that's your best matchup that you're going to get is up against these linebackers. So Dallas Goedert's going to be my impact player, and Travis Kelce on the other side, because we have no one who can cover him in that way. You're going to have a guy over top prepared at all times, and then you're going to have to trust Avonte Maddox, who's very undersized, or a linebacker who is nowhere near, like TJ Edwards or Kaiser White, who's nowhere near as athletic as Travis Kelce. You're going to have a mismatch underneath, and you're going to have somebody prepared to have to be prepared to help out over top. So those are my two offensive players, if you want to give yours.
For the Chiefs offensively, I'm going to go Isaiah Pacheco. Now, I know that the Chiefs don't really run the football a lot. That's more of an Andy Reid thing. But he can, when he runs hard. For a rookie, man, he goes out there and he lowers his pads. And he can still catch the football out the backfield. So, I mean, him lined up against, TJ Edwards or Kaiser White could be a mismatch in the Chiefs' favor. For the Eagles, I'm going to go with the receivers, Devontae and AJ. They have to win their battles. You mentioned it earlier that the secondary for the Chiefs it might be their weakness. Win those matchups and give your quarterback a chance. Give Jalen Hurts a chance to hit you down the field. If they win their matchups, then it's up to the quarterback. It's up to Hurts to be able to hit them down the field. If you can't hit them down the field, that's on him. You can't blame the receivers. So I'm going to go with the receivers for the Eagles, Devontae and A.J. Brown, and I'm going to go Isaiah Pacheco for the Kansas City Chiefs. Who do you got on the defensive side of the football?
On the defensive side of the ball, I want to go Chris Jones, but I'm going to go Frank Clark. Frank Clark's that guy who in these big moments is a guy that you look back on, and he had a big play. He had a game-changing play. So I'm going with Frank Clark. This defensive line isn't bad. It's not amazing by any stretch, but George Karlaftis has been consistent. Frank Clark's been consistent, and Chris Jones is the epitome of a consistent and very versatile defensive lineman. So I'm going with Frank Clark because he's that type of guy who, in these big moments, he steps up. He would be like the Brandon Graham against the Patriots. Get that strip sack type of play. Like that is the type of impact player I think Frank Clark can be. And Chris Jones just feels like the easy way out to pick, because that he needs to be the focus of that offensive line, and they always have to know and be accounting for Chris Jones. But that also could open things up for Frank Clark, so you got to be careful on that front. Defensively, I trust the front four to do what they got to do, so I really don't want to name somebody on the front four because they've been the impact defensive players all year for us. So I am going to go with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. There's no better time, no bigger time to sit there and say, Howie, get ready to put your money where your mouth is, because I am going to perform. This feels like one of those moments. He's got the energy. He's got the feel, like, the flair. This feels like a time where he can step up, make a big play. He's going to be called upon to deal with a guy like Kelce. He's going to probably be called upon to deal with the running back, Kadarius Toney from time to time, Juju, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling, he could be called upon to deal with some of those guys at times. You never know. His assignment's going to be all over the field, but he's going to I feel like he's got to step up. He's going to have to make a big play or two, and I feel like this is the moment. It's as good and as big as it gets for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and he loves it. You can tell he loves this moment. He'll love the moment and the opportunity to step up and make a big play, and I think he's going to be that impact player to watch defensively.
So for the Chiefs, I'm going to go Nick Bolton, and I'm going Nick Bolton because I think if there's going to be a spy for Hurts, it'll be him. And the Eagles are really testing my theory of you can't win a Super Bowl by running the football. And that's what they're doing right now. They've been obviously circumstances, they didn't really need to throw the football their 2 playoff games leading into the Super Bowl. But I know that it wouldn't shock me. The Eagles are going to come out wanting to run the ball to set up the pass. And the Eagles running game is obviously predicated by the RPO and Hurts being able to make the right decision when either handing it to Miles or keeping it. And I think Nick Bolton is going to be the guy. I could be wrong, but it could be Bolton might be the guy that's going to spy him and try to keep him contained. I thought Fred Warner would have been that guy 2 weeks ago in the NFC Championship game, but the Eagles were able to run the ball with their running backs down the throat of the Niners. And if the Eagles are able to do that and keep Patrick Mahomes off the field, then they have a shot.
And an additional note on them, like Bolton and Gay hit hard. So if they are if one of them is responsible for spying Hurts better get his ass down and slide, because they hit and they hit hard. They remind me of Blankenship and Epps, but with 25, 30 extra pounds on them. They can hit really hard. And I do not want to see Jalen Hurts taking big hits at any point in this game, especially if he's not 100%. He needs to make sure he gets down, he gets to the yardage that he needs, gets out of bounds. Just don't put yourself at risk, because they will hit, and they will hit hard. And
you took my Eagles defensive player. I was going to go Chauncey Gardner-Johnson as well, just because he's going to play all over the field. And, whether it's primarily on Kelsey, whether it's Pacheco, whether it's Valdes-Scantling, Smith-Schuster, Tony, it doesn't matter. He is going to be the guy that's going to go all over the field and try to contain these weapons. And if they're able to, that could help the front 4 get to Patrick Mahomes. And again, you're not going to be able to stop Mahomes. Mahomes is going to throw for 300 yards. Let's be honest. He's going to get his stats. You just have to be able to slow him down, and that's where I think the Eagles' offense, running the football, and having long sustained drives, is what's going to help the Eagles potentially come away with a Super Bowl victory.
And to me, okay, if he gets 300 yards, but he's under pressure 30, 40%, 50% of the time, if you're making him make those magical throws and he's making them, that's just Patrick Mahomes doing Patrick Mahomes things. I'm okay. If it's a hard-working 300 yards, good. If it's a Jonathan Gannon passive 300 yards, I'll be pissed. But if it is a hard-working 300 yards, you make him make magic, and you have him under pressure and keeping him contained, I'm okay with that, because you're doing the best that you can. It is Patrick Mahomes. It is an Andy Reid offense. We have to expect. And in the Super Bowl, we don't want the LA Rams and New England Patriots game where they scored 20 points or less between the two of them. We want we love those high scoring games, that 41-33. We want offensive games, but we also want our defense to be able to step up when it matters the most and make those big stops when it's going to matter the most.
Yep. Now it's prediction time. It's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a close game. I think all the talk on sports radio, a lot of talk on sports radio from some of the callers calling in to, WIP, saying, the Eagles are going to blow them out. They're not blowing out the Chiefs. It's not going to happen. What do you think the score will be? And are we going to be celebrating our second trophy in 5 years?
I'm going with we're not going to be. And this is because I do believe, A, Patrick Mahomes, B, I'm usually wrong when I pick that we're going to lose. So I'm praying, I'm holding out hope that I'm wrong on this prediction. I think it's going to be a really good game. Obviously, the X factor, the game changer is always Patrick Mahomes and what he can do, because you think you have him down and he makes these magical throws, these great passes. That's just not something you can game plan for because you can't stop that. So I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs over the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think this game will be a blowout. I don't think it'll be more than a touchdown game. I'm going to go with 34-31 for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Wow. I'm going 31-27 Eagles to win their second Super Bowl in 5 years. And the defense will make us
wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
The defense. See, so I have 31-27, you have 34-31. The Chiefs are going to be going down the field to potentially get to that 34 point, and the Eagles are going to make a play to come away with the victory. I'm not saying Brandon Graham strip sack type of play, but it's going to be a play, whether it's a Slay pick or a fourth down stop. The Eagles are going to make a play on defense to win the game, and on Sunday night we will be celebrating in the streets of Philadelphia.
Joe says the Eagles can blow out Chiefs if they have an outstanding defensive performance. The reason me and L are so hesitant on the outstanding defensive performance has nothing to do with the players and everything to do with Jonathan Gannon. I agree. If they can stand their ground and give us an A+ defensive performance like we've seen the past, 3 or 4 games have been really good defensive games.
Against no quarterbacks.
Against no quarterback. So agreed. But like, if you can step up and somehow make Patrick Mahomes look like a bad quarterback, that would be amazing. But our stress is not with the players. Our stress is with the coordinator. He says, I predict 41-24. That's huge, man. People really are standing behind. Listen, the Eagles have played, in my eyes, they have played to warrant discussion that they could blow a team out. I just don't think in the Super Bowl, in the biggest game of the season, against you argue it 1, 2, 3, wherever you want to put them, arguably the number 1 team in the league. I don't see a blowout happening. I just do not. This is the biggest stage. This is Patrick Mahomes. This is Andy Reid. If I'm wrong, I will come on this show on Tuesday and be proud to admit I was 100% wrong if we blow them out. But it just doesn't feel like it's going to be there.
Yeah, I find it hard to believe that it's going to be a blowout. But obviously any given Sunday, anything can happen. But we'll see what happens come Super Bowl 57, as we are a little over 3 days away from the game. What are your plans for Super Bowl Sunday, Connor? You got a party you're going to, or just going to sit back and relax?
Haven't even really figured it out yet. We feel like we're going to relax, but I mean, it's tough. I got my girlfriend. She's like 7 months pregnant. Plus we got the toddler at home. So it makes it a little tougher to go out. But I mean, no matter what, Super Bowl, maybe something will pop up at the last minute. But for now, it's a stay in, easy night and pray and, losing about 5-10 years on my life with the heart attack that will definitely be induced.
Yeah. Usually I'm able to enjoy the Super Bowl because obviously if the Eagles aren't in it, you just go wherever you're going to go, relax, eat and just enjoy the game. Now, I got my Eagles routine, where I don't eat the first couple of drives because I'm too nervous and whatnot, but we'll see what happens. But I can't wait for the game. You have the Chiefs winning 34-31. I have the Eagles winning 31-27. It should be a great game regardless of what happens. And it's 2 great teams, the 2 best teams in the NFL all year. So we should see something exciting on Sunday.
I hope.
Yes. So thank you everybody for tuning into the Kelly Green Hour. We appreciate your comments. We will be back next week with our reaction. Whether the Eagles win, whether the Eagles lose, we'll be back to go over Super Bowl 57 between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHarrell54. And before we go, Joe says, I got the whole family coming over, projector in one room, big screen TV in the others. That's the way you do it. That sounds like it's going to be a fun time. Enjoy the game, Joe. Enjoy the game, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour.
And for one last time, for real, fly, Eagles, fly, baby.
You want Philly?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sanders patiently running. Sanders good cut and another block. Sanders still going inside the 40.